So in this video, I want to do some further testing on the Fenix 7X. So this is part 2. I already made a part 1 video that I of course can link down in the description below. But in part 2, I do want to check out the weight with different watch bands, sports watch bands that I personally use. I want to measure it or compare it to my Tactix Delta. I want to measure how fast we're actually charging the watch. And I have various other things that I want to talk about and observations after using the watch for like a day now. So let's just get into it. First off, let's just weigh the watch here with the silicone watch strap and see if Garmin's actually correct there in their weight estimates. So 88.8 grams. That's of course with the standard silicone straps. So let's just remove that and see how much the watch itself weighs. And the watch itself, or the capsule as Garmin calls it, is 61 grams. And that is exactly what Garmin is advertising on the website. So spot on. Let's just for the fun of it actually see how much the Tactix Delta weighs, which is also a solar powered or solar charging capable watch with a sapphire lens. It should be 8 grams heavier. And you can see it's actually closer to 10 grams heavier. If that's actually something I can feel. I'm not sure really if I could do a blind test here, but yeah, actually it does feel a little bit lighter. The Fenix 7X, you do kind of feel it when you're just weighing the watches like this. It is also 10 grams heavier. So yeah, exactly 10 grams heavier. And yeah, you do kind of feel that. Let's see what we can get here with the 7X. If you use some of these sports bands here. First off, I want to try this Garmin UltraFit band, and it's bringing it up to close to 67 grams. So like 6 grams with this band here, but still that's quite a bit less than actually just the capsule of my Tactix Delta. So yeah, that's definitely something I will notice. Next off is the Yo-Side band from Amazon. I really like this band. It's my favorite one. This is a brand new one. Let's just try and put it on the watch itself here. Slightly heavier. So 1.5 gram-ish or 1.2 grams or so heavier, but definitely not something I will notice. And I really like the convenience of this band here. Next off, let's just try this cheap one from AliExpress. This is kind of a UltraFit ripoff. And I have made videos of all of these bands. You can go to my channel and check them out, and I can link some of them down in the description below if I kind of remember to do so. But this is a very inexpensive band, actually the less expensive of the bunch. You can see it is just around the same weight as the UltraFit. You can get it down to less than 70 grams, which is what just the capsule of the watch itself is like weighing on the Tactix Delta here. You can actually get the 7X a few grams lighter with a watch band, one of the sports band. So that's definitely good news. And let's just compare the Tactix Delta here on my right. So this is the solar edition of Tactix Delta. And of course the Fenix 7X Sapphire Solar Edition here on the left. Of course both of these have sapphire lens, but the actual solar panel is only 7% dense on the 7X, whereas it is 10% dense on the Tactix Delta when it comes to the actual watch face. Let's actually see if we can spot some differences. If the 7X is a little bit clearer. I don't know if you can notice the reflections there. You can see on my Tactix Delta, you definitely have more reflections. I'm not really sure what Garmin have done here, but you can see on the Tactix Delta, the reflections are quite a bit different compared to the 7X. A lot bigger reflections. I don't know if they have put some kind of magnification in this sapphire lens here. Definitely notice it being a little bit clearer on the 7X Sapphire. It's not like night and day, but it is noticeable and not really comparable to like the Gorilla Glass DX screens. Still is quite a bit less transparent and also a lot more glare, but it is definitely better than the Tactix Delta Solar here. And also in terms of the reflections, you can see the Tactix Delta there at certain angles is pretty much unusable or very, very hard to actually see something. You can kind of get close results there on the 7X, but not really the same, where it's actually almost invisible, the entire screen, only really the reflections there. I believe this is the solar panels on the Tactix Delta that actually, in this angle here, looks a little bit worse, but you can see the reflections definitely a lot smaller on the Tactix Delta and a lot bigger on the Fenix 7X Sapphire. So they have definitely done something different with this lens here, and also with the solar panels not really being as dense, so doesn't really take up as much of the screen clarity. And just to compare here between this is the 945 LTE, because it does have a Gorilla Glass DX screen, which is the most transparent of them all. And of course, I do have a lot of light here shining down towards the watches here. So you can see a lot less reflections there on the Gorilla Glass DX. So still not up to the same level of transparency with the Gorilla Glass DX or the base models of the Fenix watches, but get a lot more protection. So doesn't scratch as easily. And of course, the compromise is that you cannot really read the screen in all kind of environment, and you get a lot of more glare and reflections when you're out in a sunny environment, and also in shades. It can sometimes be a little hard to actually see. You get kind of used to it, I would say, but it is noticeable coming from a Gorilla Glass DX screen to the Sapphire. Not really up to the par, but definitely better compared to like the Tactix Delta here. You can see it's pretty much unwatchable there. The whole screen kind of lights up in a weird fashion. Same angle there on the Gorilla Glass DX, and it's not really as bad. So I would say 7X definitely a clear improvement with the Sapphire lens here. And one of the improvements, of course, with the 7X series and the 7 series in general with the solar cells there, it's around 3 times bigger. So should be, let's just see here, maybe 2.4 millimeters ish. Yeah, just around there. And of course on the Tactix Delta, I believe it's closer to like 1 millimeter. If you can actually even see that little ring there, you need to really find it in specific lighting conditions. Maybe not even a millimeter of thickness to that solar panel there. So definitely much bigger. And Garmin have also done some under the hood improvements to the efficiency of the chipset and so on. So we get much more out of the solar cells here of the 7 series of watches compared to the previous series. And also, of course, you can get several more days if you, of course, meet those demands with 3 hours of sun up to a minimum of 50,000 lux a day. You can actually get quite a bit better battery life or longer battery life with the 7 series compared to the previous generation. So yeah, a complete improvement here with the Sapphire lens, and also with, of course, the solar improvements there. So much more efficient and can actually be quite a bit more useful and better transparency as well. Plus, of course, the added bonus of having a touchscreen, which I've actually come to like quite a bit. But overall, I wouldn't say the 7X feels much faster. It actually, I wouldn't say it's slower, but it does sometimes feel like it's just waiting a second or two more. You can see when I go into my activities there, actually a little bit slower than on my Tactix Delta. I'm sure they will just improve that with time. It is very early firmware, so I didn't hit the button at the same time there, but hitting the button at the same time, you can see it does take just a slight second longer to actually get into my activity screen. Yeah, it's actually a little bit faster when you actually want to go into an activity, like run, for instance. Here you can see it is faster on the 7X, but just getting into that activity screen, or with the different apps and activities here, let's just select walking and get into those. So yeah, definitely fast on the 7X when you actually want to get into an activity, but getting to the activity screen feels just a little sluggish. That's the biggest thing I've actually noticed. So actually just swiping between the map, you can see here scrolling seems to be a little bit faster. On the 7X, at least it loads the map in a little bit faster when you actually stop on a certain area. But the 6 is not really all that far behind, to be honest. You can see it is a little bit faster there at drawing the map, but nothing major. And it's actually pretty much comparable when you actually are turning the maps around to actually get the correct orientation. I can't really show that in real time right now because I don't want to show you where I'm at, of course, in my location. But it is pretty much on par when you are using the compass to actually turn the map if you want to point it to a certain direction. Both of them are not super fast. Maybe a little bit faster on the 7, but definitely not night and day. I definitely wish that that would have been improved a little bit more. But just to be able to have that touch screen here to swipe around here is just fantastic. And of course, zoom in and zoom out. You can use the little plus and minus signs there, but you can also double tap to just zoom in. There's no pinch to zoom yet, at least. Maybe that will come in the future. But of course, you need to tap the minus button there to get out. And of course, long press here to just safe position, or if you want to navigate there. Whereas of course on the older models it was all down to button here you have to press, and you can switch between going left and or right, and zoom in and or zoom out. And yeah, it was a little cumbersome to actually get around in the map. So it's much easier just to use the touch instead of having going into the settings and using the buttons to pan around and zoom in and or zoom out. This is just so much easier, and yeah, it seems to be plenty fast. But like I said, the compass there turning the map still seems to be pretty much the same speed. So speed-wise between the two watches, I'm not really sure I'm noticing a big difference. And actually the animations that I was kind of impressed the first time I used the 7X, I kind of forgot that the Tactix Delta also had those kind of animations. And they are pretty smooth and pretty fast. I wouldn't say one is faster than the other, but definitely I feel maybe a little bit smoother animations on the 7X. Not night and day though. You can see they go into the widgets pretty much the same time. You get into a activity, pretty much the same speed. So speed-wise, I don't really think there is any reason to upgrade, because the 6 still feels pretty fast. So yeah, I guess he's scrolling between the widgets here on the Tactix Delta, scrolling between the widgets here on the 7X. Both of them feels fast and smooth, so yeah, not a major difference yet. Maybe when it comes to like applications, you have third-party applications through Connect IQ. Maybe you'll see some improvement there, and maybe going forward as well. But as of now, I don't feel like the speed is a reason to upgrade to the 7X or the 7 series over the 6. The 6 still feels plenty fast, and maybe just a hair slower in some scenarios, but it's not really night and day. And the 6 never for me felt slow by any stretch of the imagination. Did feel like a big improvement coming from the 5 to the 6, and the 6 have definitely held up quite well. Now charging speeds, that's not something Garmin has really advertised or talked much about, really. Is it faster charging, slower charging? No, they haven't really advertised any kind of fast charging or how long it would actually take to charge the batteries. So I have this little meter here, so it can tell me how many ampere or amps I'm actually pulling from the wall here. I did charge it yesterday. I played around with it quite a bit and have done one activity, so I'm down to 92%. But let's just plug it in and see how many ampere it's actually pulling from the wall. So around 0.2 amps, 2.4, 2.5 amp, but 0.2 amps. And I'm not really sure if the charging speed is a little bit different when there's not that much battery on the watch. You see this falling a little bit. So around the 0.20 amp of power or amp is actually pulling from the wall there. Let's try and do the same with the Tactix Delta. Let's see how much that is pulling from the wall, and you can see, yeah, pretty much the same. And by the way, we are at 81% on the Tactix Delta. 0.23 amps seem to be exactly the same charging speed, at least based on this test. I will do some further testing when the battery is lower percentages. Maybe it will kind of trickle charge when it gets up to the higher percentages of battery. But I didn't really have this measurement tool where I was yesterday, so couldn't really test that up. And I was so excited to get up and running with my 7X, so didn't really test that. But as of this test here, doesn't seem to be faster. Let's just try the 945 LTE. This one is at 78% battery. It doesn't have any kind of fast charging that I know of, at least. Let's just plug it in, and you can see it is charging. And that's also around the 0.26 amp. So 0.26 amp, which is pretty much around the same ampage of the two other watches here from Garmin. So I don't suspect that the 7X or the 7 series have faster charging, which is a little bit unfortunate, I think, because it can take quite some time to get that up to 100%, because it's a rather big battery. Of course, I do not know how big the battery is in the 7X. Maybe it's gotten smaller and the chipset has just gotten more efficient, so it will actually charge faster. I'm not really sure, but as of this testing, it seems to be charging at the same rate as the 6th generation of the Garmin watches. And of course, we still have USB 2.0, which is not really a big issue. 32 gigabytes of onboard storage on the bigger models and 16 on the smaller models. USB 2.0, I think, is okay for that amount of storage. but it will take quite some time to actually update maps and transfer music to your device if you do it over USB. So I've been using the watch for a day now. Of course, I have been messing around with it quite a bit, and I've noticed some things that not annoyances, but just some things that I have noticed is, for example, if you want to get into settings, you cannot really do so with the touch screen alone. Like long touch, for instance, on the watch face will get you into settings. You still have to press and hold the middle button here to get into settings. And once you're inside settings, you can only really scroll in one direction, at least when you're on the top of the settings menu here. For instance, if you want to go to the bottom, I'm just so used to pressing the up button and you go to the system settings. But scrolling up here, you will just get a little elastic function there. It won't really go to the bottom of the list. So you kind of have to scroll all the way down to the bottom if you want to get into the system settings. So that's just a minor thing, inconvenience, but the good news is that you still have the good old trusty buttons, so you can just use it the old-fashioned way as well. And one thing I noticed today when I was setting a timer is that I don't really feel like they have updated this interface at all for touch. Pretty much the same interface with the buttons where you just press up and or down here. And of course you can do so with the finger as well, but it's only changing number by one at a time, and you get a little vibration when you're actually switching number. I wish it would be a little more smooth, like scrolling up or down, like a little more fluid. So it feels like they're just taking that button menu system and made it into a touch system. So it doesn't feel all that great. I really like though the newer vibration motor. It's much more powerful than before. Not much more, but it is significantly more powerful, and that's one of the issues I've had with the Tactix Delta and the Fenix 6 series. I've had the Fenix 6 and the 6X as well. The vibration engine could feel a little weak at times. Sometimes I missed notifications, and also when I was all out running, doing splits and stuff, when the watch would vibrate, when I was at the end of my split, I had to start a new split and so on. Sometimes it could be a little hard to actually feel it when you're giving it everything you got. But also the kind of new vibration feedback you get throughout the menu system. For instance, holding the back button here, you get like too fast vibration when you're back to the home screen. And I've just noticed that throughout the whole menu system, that there are some certain vibrations here and there that just help you kind of feel where you are in the menu system and give you a confirmation if you have actually gone back to the home screen, for instance, in this scenario here. Kind of a little bit like Apple Watch, like when you're scrolling that button there, you get some haptic feedback. So you get also haptic feedback here throughout the menu system, and I really like that actually. But still, as a touch UI, there's still some minor drawbacks. Like I said, you have to still press the physical button to get into the menus and so on. So not 100% touch, you still have to rely on the buttons from time to time. But one thing I was very impressed at, like insanely impressed at, was the GPS of this watch here, or at least the time it took to acquire GPS. Tested it out yesterday when I got the watch. I was inside an apartment high up, and it was inside a city environment. I was near a window, but I wasn't right next to a window. And I just tried to, acquire GPS signal for my location. It took, a few seconds, and it actually acquired a GPS signal and showed me my coordinates inside from an apartment in a city. I've never really had that happening to me before. And today I just went out and did a walk because I have an injury right now and I'm not really able to run. I might go out tomorrow and do a, just slow run and see how I feel. I just did a walk today. Again, in the city environment, I was right next to a tall building. I just went into the walking activity. It didn't take more than 2 seconds max, and I already had a GPS lockdown. That has never happened to me before in those places, even with the 945 LCE, which has quite a bit better antenna design. I still had to go out to the main road to get a reliable GPS reception, excuse me. This one just did it right next to the building, tall, like I said, building inside the city. So kind of impressed me right there, and also inside my apartment. In terms of tracking, like I said, I haven't done any real running, but I did a walk today, just a short walk, a little over 3 kilometers inside the city, and I was walking on the left side of the street. I have my watch on the left wrist, and there was tall buildings pretty much all the way on the little trip that I went to today. And yeah, you can see here, actually it's not bad considering, like I said, it is inside the city, and I was on the left side of the street, so I had the watch right next to the buildings, which is the worst kind of environment. You could pretty much have a watch in the city here. It's not perfect, but it does kind of track me on the left side of the road there. I don't know if you can see that, but it does also make a few, you can see here, twirls and such. But I believe also I had to, there were kind of some red lights there and there, so this is pretty normal behavior, and it does have some of those like snaky, like you can see big jumps there onto the other side of the road, but that's also in the beginning of my walk. A little further down, it actually tracked me quite well. Like I said, this is pretty hard environment for a GPS to actually track, and this one did quite okay considering or comparing to like the previous generation of Garmin watches. Definitely much better than my 945 LTE. As soon as I get into the city, when I've been out running in parks and such, get into the city with the tall buildings on the left side of the road, my pace is just all over the place. I feel like the 7X can do a lot better there, and I'm looking forward to actually get out and run with this watch here. So GPS right out the bat has really impressed me. I do not use dual band mode, I just use GSS, so all the 3 different GPS or global positioning system services. This is the standard setting on this watch here, and it seems to do quite a good job, and I believe the antenna design must also have been quite improved on this one here. Background lighting on this watch here, feel like it's a little towards the bluish hue. I know there's been a lot of talk about blue light issues on Garmin watches. Not really sure this can warrant a blue light issue, but it is definitely a little more blue than on my Tactix Delta. My Tactix Delta is a little more towards the purple in light, and the 7X for me is a little towards the coolish white. So I believe the light in the screen, this is at 20% of both of them, standard setting. I believe it's a little bit brighter than my Tactix Delta. It does look a lot brighter, a little bit brighter on the 7 series. A little more bluish white, a little more towards the, I wouldn't say blue white, but cool white. Whereas on my Tactix Delta, it looks a little more like the little more purpley kind of white. I'm not really sure what I like. I would like something in between the two, but probably would prefer just a little bit the 7 series over the Tactix Delta. Again, I'm not really sure that's something I would really have noticed or paid attention to had I not read online on Reddit and so on. Those kind of issues people have had with blue screens, so always something I test. And I definitely would say it does have quite good backlighting system. Comparable to other Fenix devices. I've seen a lot worse, but it's not perfect either. Would have been nice to see a natural white and a little higher contrast. And I think that's one of the reasons why Garmin have made like the whole setting structure of the 7 series white background, as you can see, compared to the 6 series there, or black, excuse me, on the 7 series and white on the 6 series, because it is harder to actually see if there's any kind of blue light there on the lighting or on the backlighting on the 7 series compared to the 6 series. But not an issue. I think the backlight is actually quite good. And now that we talk about lighting, let's just test that flashlight there. Double tap, of course, to turn it on, and you have multiple settings. Let's just go in here and set it to the brightest settings. And I have my little light box here where I can actually shine the light into, and I have a little lux reader. So you can see I am getting just around 750 lux with my little light box here. This is of course on the maximum brightness, and on the red one I suspect it wouldn't be that much, but around 50 lux. Let's just compare it to my iPhone here, light, and see how much that can actually shine into this little box here. Okay, that is quite a bit brighter, actually about twice as bright. Not really sure I notice it because it's a lot floatier light on the iPhone. But you can see we are up in around close to 1430 lux here. So yeah, iPhone 13 Pro Max is a lot brighter when it comes to its built-in flashlight. But I feel like this little light here has been quite helpful. Yeah, maybe I can get it up to around the 760 lux, but definitely have been a very helpful little thing to have on me already. I've used it quite a few times in real life scenarios, not just for testing. For instance, today when I got home, I had to clock out my watch or my sink. So get underneath my sink and have that little light on me. And it was very easy to just get in there and shine a more than efficient light onto whatever it is I had to do. Of course, I have to untighten and unclog the sink, and that's not the only time it's actually be helpful. Also at night when I have to go to the toilet, could be quite helpful. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to try that out also when I'm out and running. So I would say it's not really a gimmick, not for me at least. I suspect I will actually end up using this light quite a bit, almost daily around the house and just out and about. And it's also winter time here, so it gets dark pretty quick. If you want to just check something inside your car, you can just light it down, of course, or you just have that light always on your wrist. One thing I just noticed though is, because winter time here in my country, of course I have long sleeves on my arms and having the watch pretty high up on my wrist to get the best reading. And yeah, you can see it's kind of blocking the light a little bit, and also if I have a jacket on. So that's minor annoyance. You just need to make sure you keep any kind of sleeves out of the way so you can get sufficient lighting. But that's the only really issue I had with it. Just today here, when I had my jacket on and I needed some light, you need to kind of pull it up a little bit on your sleeve. But the light definitely is usable, and 750 lux I believe is pretty powerful as well. So after one day of uses, I've actually been quite happy with this watch. It have improved upon all the issues I've had with the 6 series, like GPS, not only accuracy, but also acquisition or logging down to those satellites can take quite some time. You now have touch interface, you have a sapphire screen that's actually more transparent or easier to actually see the actual screen underneath. The little heart rate sensor is not only more accurate, pulse ox sensor is quite a bit faster as well, but also better protected with a glass lens and also incorporated into the design much better in my opinion. As you can see here, of course the Elevate 3 here on the Tactix Delta, still this plastic blob there that kind of just get a lot of gunk and accumulate a lot of sweat and everything in there, because it just sticks through the metal backplate, whereas on the Fenix 6 series or 7 series, excuse me, is incorporated into the backplate design, which in my opinion is a much better design solution. I really like this. This is a major upgrade in my book at least. One thing I really would hope that Garmin would use from the Tactix Delta or pull over from Tactix Delta is actually those knurling buttons there. I don't know if you can see, but those knurlings there just make so much difference. If you have gloves on, slippery gloves, those are just very nice to use, and you have nice tactical feel that you actually are touching a button. These are just slippery and a little bit round. Button feel, I have had no issues with my buttons, feels very nice and tactical. But I really wish that Garmin would use those knurling buttons there from the Tactix Delta series. And speaking of buttons, that little sleeve there protecting the start stop button has been a little bit of an annoyance for me, because I'm used to maybe touching the button from this side and from the other side, maybe on the edge a little bit. So because of the sleeve there, which is added for protection. So I kind of like the reasoning for being there, but it's just because I'm used to having that big button stick out and I can kind of press it pretty much wherever I want. This one, I have to be more accurate and press it just in the center. So a few times when I wanted to press the button, I've actually ended up not doing so, because it is kind of protected by those raised sides there. So I like it, but I just have to get used to it. But Garmin, bring those knurling buttons over to the Fenix series. It would be so awesome. And you can also kind of see the design here. It is a little bit slimmer compared to the Fenix 6 series, or at least the Tactix Delta here. And size-wise, I think it's actually pretty much the same, because it's advertised as 51 millimeter. And you can see 51.7 millimeter, but it also depends kind of where you're actually measuring. 51.6 millimeter there versus the Tactix Delta, 51.4 millimeter. And let's just measure it the same place here, 51 straight. So it's maybe a little bit wider. You kind of also see that, but it's also not as thick. So Tactix Delta here, we are looking at 15.1 millimeter, and the Tactix Delta here 14.5. So it is a little slimmer, and I kind of like that as well, because the Tactix Delta 10 grams heavier also sticks out a little bit further when you're running. You kind of feel it a little sagging down a little bit on your wrist, especially for doing splits, excuse me. It just wobble a little bit on my wrist as well, even though I tied it down quite significantly. So I suspect it will be better on the 7X, actually running and doing splits and longer runs as well, because it's a little slimmer in terms of thickness. So it can also sit on your wrist a little better and not and at the same time be 10 grams lighter. I think that actually could be a big difference in activities when running and doing high intensity activities. First impression here, part 2 of the video after 1 day of using it. Definitely still like it. I think it's a great watch. Is it worth the money and the price to upgrade to this over like selling the Tactix Delta and still having to pay quite a significant sum for this watch here? It is very expensive. It is brand new, of course, so it's hard to get it at a lower price than MSRP. I did get it with a 5% discount, so did get a little bit cheaper, but still it is quite an expensive watch. It is definitely a big price to pay for this watch here, to get touch, better GPS and all of the hardware improvements, and also the battery life and the flashlight. I think it is worth it to me, but I need to spend a little more time with it to actually give me my final verdict. So I will probably get back within a week or so when I've done some more activity with this watch here and also wearing it every day. See how well that actually been working out. Maybe it's not really the best thing to be early adopter because you pay a high premium to do so, but also Garmin could like 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line bring out a newer model with have LTE and also have like calls on board, so you can answer calls on your phone like on the Venue 2 Plus. It is getting a little old just being able to reject calls and also of course see who is calling you and still have to pull out your phone when you are like doing some activity or if you have your hands full with groceries and stuff like that. It is very useful. So for now, I'm definitely going to keep it, but in a week time, when I've done some more testing and used it a little bit more, I will get back and give you my final verdict. And also if I end up selling my Tactix Delta, I've had put it on sale, so maybe somebody would like to buy it and get a good price for it. I would definitely sell it and just keep the 7X. But I suspect that I would not really be able to get that much for my Tactix Delta, considering there is a newer model out, which also have a sapphire screen and solar and newer functions. Then it kind of makes this a little obsolete in terms of its feature set, even though it still is a fantastic watch. One thing to consider is, of course, also the 6 series of watches has dropped down in price significantly. Like I've seen it like lower than half its MSRP in my country for the Fenix 6 Pro. It's kind of insane. And the 6X as well, sapphire versions, just being very inexpensive. I think you're getting a lot for your money if you can get it at a good price with the 6 series, and it still is fast and a great watch going into the foreseeable future, if you of course can live with its shortcomings. But that's pretty much it for this video. I will do some more testings and of course do some more videos of this watch here. Let me know down in the comments field below if there is something specific you want me to test. And I also just received the Epix today, the sapphire version as well, and I will do a video of that and also comparing it a little bit to this watch here. So yeah, a lot of Garmin content is coming to my channel the next foreseeable future, so just stay tuned for that. But that's pretty much it for this video. I hope to see you again in a future one. Until then, take care.